going to talk more about Ballotpedia, and we're going to talk about the election analyses that they do for pretty much every election year, even the odd ones and the midterms and the main presidential ones. So I'm going to talk about their election hub analysis. And to get to their election hubs, it's a little bit of, they don't like really have a direct link. So this is kind of a side street that we're going to go on. So this is the link we want, Election Analysis Hub 2022. And then if you wanted to look for different years, you can look at the hubs for the year previous or even before that, or you can look at this year's. And this is kind of a portal for, an enormous amount of information. So you can go and it'll go into a summary of really what happened. They'll tell you how many seats were up on the federal level, that is, how many seats were up for re-election. They'll break it down into the two houses. Then they'll have articles with more specific information about that election year. And by articles, I don't necessarily mean like a news article. It's more of a side page of a topic of 2022. And they do this for each election year, the article that is. And they also do the more granular topics for each section of offices. So for the federal level, they'll have articles on the House and Senate, the state branches, both the legislatures and then the governorships. And then they even go into the local elections and some of the ballot measures. And one thing I wanted to know about their ballot measure section that they provide information is that they give a readability score. And that's kind of important because sometimes these states try to be really sneaky and word their questions that you'd be voting on, funny. So to trick voters into voting one way by asking it a way that makes them think, oh, yeah, that's how I want it, not realizing that it's really you should vote no based on the way the question is asked. So they'll give a readability, and then they'll also show trends. They have a report for different topics that were on the ballot across multiple states. And in 2022, no surprise, was abortion, marijuana, voting-related policies, and so on. Then you can also, of course, go granular by state. So you just hover over different states and you can get into 2022 by state. So let's go back up real quick. Let's look at, oops, went too far. The one interesting article that we'll go over is the Congressional Competitiveness Report. And this will just, it's exactly as it sounds, but it provides the data and how they came to this conclusion on how competitive a seat is for 2022, and then they'll predict into 2024. Of course, they're not always going to be right, but at least here's the data so you can look at it for yourself, and they'll show you the most competitive seats in every state. They'll also give you what seemed like, why would you want to know this kind of statistic, but it can really help different, people who, election folks who are looking at how plausible it is that a Democrat could win here or a Republican could flip a seat. This data is really helpful in that, and that's why Adam Frisch, he realized that he could beat, even though he obviously didn't win, he saw that from that data he had a chance at winning. So this is the type of data that would help make those decisions. And of course, they're not always 100%, but it does, this is the raw, it helps find the raw data that can help make those decisions, give insights. So it'll also go into how competitive different primaries could be. And one thing that's really awesome about Ballotpedia is that it is very transparent and in its methodology and how it comes to these conclusions. So you can always go down to the bottom and it'll tell you how they found this information and why they feel that they're coming to this conclusion, how and why they are giving this conclusion. They also give definitions to what they're talking about. So, they're giving a lot of content that you might think that only really experienced people in politics would know what it is. So, with that in mind, they also give definitions to things for people who don't know, who are just learning, who are just kind of dipping their toe into government information and political information. So obviously people like us, and especially if you're watching this video, you likely already know what open seats mean or incumbent in contested primaries mean, but someone just learning about this stuff likely won't. So it's really beneficial and really amazing that they're able to give such a broad spectrum of knowledge for the beginner and for the real experience. I want the raw data to run numbers type political of political interests. And of course, they always provide their footnotes, so you can go exactly to where they found their content. So let's go back. Where is it? Oh, wave and election analysis. This is another really cool part of Ballotpedia. And again, they have an analysis / predictions of whether or not there'll be a red wave, a blue wave for the different election years. And they only do even election years for the midterms and then obviously the presidential election. So they'll show you their published study when there is one, and the different election cycles that they'll look at to determine a few years ahead, and then just within the next midterm or presidential cycle. So they give you kind of the historical information on the federal, state, and local levels. They'll even define what exactly a wave is, and what it, and there is a definitive definition of what how many wins it takes to be considered a wave election year. They'll also give you links to looking at the full election, going back to what we already looked at, and some of the other parts of the 2022 election. So they really link everything. It's easy to go down a rabbit hole because you can just keep clicking on links to learn more about the different parts of a particular election year. So that's it for today for Election Hub analyses. We'll talk a little bit more about Ballotpedia in the next few videos, but that's it for today. As far as talking about Ballotpedia's election hubs, we'll go over more content that Ballotpedia publishes and how it can be helpful. So stay tuned for more, and I hope you have a great day, friends. Bye.